Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto was in Street Fighter. If you guys enjoy this what if, then comment down below and let me the let go of the video is 100 likes, so like this video, let me that you're interested in the series and you want the next part, then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave, also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So let's go. Why are you here? Seemed to be the only thing that Naruto could say at the moment, as he had repeated himself well over 12 times already. Each time sounded more desperate than the last. For the love of Kami, why are you here? He had been sitting in class and then suddenly found himself called out to the front of the school to be checked out immediately. Now who on earth could check him out of school? He didn't have any guardians or anything of the sort. And then he saw 3 people standing outside of the front gate right by a limousine, and this brings us to the current situation. Why are you here? Why the hell are you here? Naruto kept stressing repeatedly as he stood in front of Karen and her entourage Shibazaki and Ishizaki. I have school. Man, I never thought I'd use that as an excuse for anything before. It made him feel dirty to try and do so. Excuse me, Uzumaki-san, Karen said, though she didn't sound apologetic in the least. But I pay you handsomely, thus I own you. You do remember the terms of our arrangement, don't you? You fight and climb the rankings and I will make sure that you are very well compensated. She smirked and laughed with her hand covering her mouth. I more or less own you if you remember correctly. First of all, nobody owns Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto replied, crossing his arms stubbornly and squinting his eyes at her. They rent him. At best they lease him. But definitely nobody owns him. Second of all, don't you have school? I am tired of my school. Karen stated dismissively, I've had Shibazaki look into moving me to a different one, a transfer. Perhaps this one. She ignored the look of pure horror on Naruto's face and turned to walk back towards her limousine. Well, come on then. We are wasting precious time. With a snap of her fingers, Ishizaki's hulking form picked a catatonic Naruto up and carried him to the back of the limo before getting in the front with Shibazaki. XXX. What wonderful weather for a day trip. Karen stated brightly as she and Naruto rode in the back of a chopper with Shibazaki and Ishizaki in the front. Naruto was sitting next to her in his fighting equipment, marveling at the sight of Japan from the air. Don't you just love taking your days off to travel? It's Thursday. Naruto replied glibly, only souring his mood for a second before childlike interest took over once again at the view. He was ignoring the fact that Ishizaki had made Karen tea while they were in the chopper and wondered how she was drinking it so evenly and gracefully, but he just chalked it up to some whole rich girl home training kind of thing and let it lie. For Karen though, it was so interesting watching how commoners like Naruto took to the things that someone like became used to years ago. Flying in a helicopter was really no different to her than catching a train was for Naruto. But the time for that was over, as it was time to make sure her little vanity investment began to pay itself or himself off. Let us get down to business, shall we? Karen said, crossing one leg gracefully over the other, getting Naruto's attention away from looking outside to look upon her instead. I have given you ample time to get your affairs all in order and get used to the idea. Now I want to begin seeing some results. You will begin fighting within the top 20 Japanese fighters listed on that site immediately. Are we clear? Really? Well, she did kind of have a point as far as Naruto was concerned. It had been over a month since August when they had struck the deal. September was in full swing and it was almost October. If he was her, he would have wanted something done by winter as well. Well, where are we going, boss lady? Boss lady, how boorishly delightful. At least he was aware of who was signing the checks here. Taking a sip of her tea and sighing in contentment at its taste and the fact that Naruto seemed to be on board with the whole thing, Karen only then began to explain, to Tokyo of course. Many of the greater fighters Japan are hard to locate. But I found one that should stop the speculation of if you are deserving of being ranked or not. This is where we are headed now. And you had to pull me out of school for this. Would you rather I used your one day off on Sunday? Touché. The two sat in silence with Karen continuing to drink her tea and Naruto making sure he had his phone with him in case someone called him. He held back a laugh as by now he had gotten several worried text messages from his friends wondering if he got abducted or something, since they knew he was a ninja and a mercenary to boot. Eventually, after responding to his friends and scrolling through his contact list to look at Karen's number, He shrugged to himself and raised his phone to take a picture of her in between her refined-looking sips. He smiled when he saw that it was actually a good picture and captured who she more or less was. Satisfied with his phone picture, Naruto placed it as the picture that would come up whenever Karen called him and looked up at said girl who was giving him an amused look of interest. Feeling like he had been caught doing something he shouldn't have, he went to explain, "Hey, I kind of have a picture of all of my friends by their numbers in my phone. I didn't have yours, so we are friends to you." The smirk on Karen's face never fell as she asked her question, "And you believe that I would freely associate with a commoner to that extent?" He wasn't sure if that was a trick question or not, so he just answered it earnestly, "Yes. You're not just my boss, and I've had way worse friends than you." It was true, he had worse friends before. Karen had never even really done anything to hurt him outside of fighting him the one time, which was more fun than dangerous. And this wouldn't be the first time that Naruto found a friend in a client of his either. Even Batsu was technically one of those, so tell me why you're a fighter anyway. There's got to be a reason, right? You really wish to know the answer to that question, Karen said, holding out her empty teacup as Ishizaki turned around in his front seat and gave her a refill without spilling a drop in the moving chopper. Naruto nodded rather eagerly with a grin on his face. "Very well. I guess we have time before landing," she said as she could begin to see the very large city's outskirts in the distance. "Well, as you probably know already, I am the heir to the Kanzuki fortune. You also probably believe that this led to a rather easy upbringing, correct?" When she saw Naruto hesitantly nod, she smirked. "You would be sorely mistaken on that front then, Uzumaki-san. You can call me Naruto if you want to," Naruto said before raising an eyebrow in confusion. "How is it hard though?" Calmly taking a sip of her tea as if the answer didn't matter, Karen addressed it. "Oh, well, simply put, my father wanted a boy to inherit everything and wound up with me. I would like to say that he was not completely displeased by my gender. But I would probably be lying to you if I said as much. Sexism against his daughter. That wasn't cool with Naruto. Sexism in general wasn't cool, as he knew more than a dozen women that could knock his teeth out on any given day, Karen included. That's messed up, Karen. But that doesn't really tell me much. I was not done, Naruto-san. You are quite the impatient one even when I am volunteering to tell you this story," Karen said, chiding Naruto in a way before continuing. "Father has put up multiple tests in my path to deem me worthy of receiving my inheritance. When I was 9 years old, I was left in a forest miles away from any property that we owned with a mere pittance of food and water. I was told that if I did not return safely I would be disowned. I did this in 4 days when it took my father 2 weeks. That's some forest of death crap, only without the giant deadly animals and plants." "What was that?" "Nothing, keep going." Karen looked at Naruto suspiciously, but did as instructed, making sure to note this forest of death place. Perhaps it is where he received his training. Shoving that to the back of her mind to look up in a world atlas later, Karen did continue on with her tale. "The next one was simply a display of my superior charm and beauty. I was to charm a minimum of 5,000 of the world's gentlemen or I could never receive the inheritance." Wow, that was also very messed up. And it just had to beg the question, Naruto just couldn't help himself, "And you really got that many? You know that you're like 15 years old, right? Even if you got one a day, that would take like a lot of years." Math was not really Naruto's strong suit. That is what galas and multiple other social gatherings are for Naruto-san. Karen said with a babying smile, patting Naruto on the cheek. "At this point I am at 329.6. Is that correct, Shibazaki?" she asked her steward who was flying the chopper. "Uzumaki-san makes 3,297 Kanzuki-sama." Naruto frowned at the pilot. "Steward, man of many talents, she didn't charm me. I've charmed you into my service," Karen reasoned nonchalantly with a confident smirk. "So yes, I have indeed charmed you, Uzumaki Naruto, number 3,297, even if it is not what you would consider charmed. Still, there is plenty of time for that as well. Eventually you will fall for my beauty as well." She flipped her hair back once haughtily. "Commoners often want what they cannot obtain." "Right," Naruto said skeptically before shooting a glance at the city of Tokyo. He had seen it from above a few times before due to other times he worked in Tokyo for Karen, but he wondered how it looked at night instead of in the daytime like it currently was. Your story. Yes, where was I? Willing to leave the topic of charm where it was in order to continue talking about herself, Karen carried on. Oh yes, and the latest test was just last year as a matter of fact. I had to stop a stampede of 50 bulls all by myself. Bulls. Naruto remembered his own run-in with bulls right before the final round of the Chunin exams. Clones barely helped him out of that mess. How did you do that? I'm certain it is on the internet somewhere if you look hard enough. Assured Karen, smiling the entire time. It took place during the running with the bulls in Spain, so I'm certain someone somewhere has footage of it. And he would definitely be looking for it later the moment he was free. Once again, all of this was very messed up. And it still confused Naruto about why he was doing this for Karen. So why exactly do you want me to do this again? I'm confused. You're strong, and from what you just told me you're stronger than you showed me when we fought. To defeat the best fighter in the entire world, of course. She then pointed expressively at Naruto for added emphasis, which will be you, I might add. It is the entire reason I am your manager. Yeah, I kind of get that. Naruto said with a confused expression on his whisker-marked face, but why don't you just fight your way up through the rankings yourself? I'm sure you could do it. A laugh came from Karen as she shook her head, seemingly at Naruto's naivety. Why does it matter how the job is accomplished as long as the proper results are achieved? If by defeating you after you have defeated all other obstacles in my way I can attain the same thing that I otherwise would have had to struggle endlessly for, then why would I not take that course of action? All you need is victory, Naruto-san. It doesn't matter how you obtain it. Sitting back in his chair, Naruto started tying his Konoha headband around his head tightly to prepare for the eventual disembarkment from the helicopter and remembered his own thoughts on becoming Hokage in Konoha one day. I don't agree with that, Karen. The journey to get to what you want is important too. If I actually do end up being the best fighter in the world, it'll be because I was prepared for it, because I grew into it. But you're the boss. You don't really care what I think, do you? Gasp, you think? In a faint surprised manner was the first response that came to Karen's mind, but she thought better of it while she was drinking. It wouldn't do to have him upset at her at the moment. There was still travel that needed to be done, and then they'd have to fly back to Ahura City later, thus changing her response. The ideals of the middle class mean very little to me. Apparently having no shame in openly admitting such, Karen continued to drink her tea as they flew towards a helipad situated on the top of a skyscraper. I hope that you are ready to take your first step up the ladder, Naruto-san. XXX. Afternoon, Ahura City, Sakura's house. In Sakura's living room she sat on a couch next to Kei and Ibuki, who wound up being friends with the two of them by way of Naruto over the past 2 weeks that she had been a student in their school. At the moment, Sakura was in a very good mood due to the fact that she was playing video games with another person and happened to be winning for once. You're the second ninja I've ever had in my house, and you're by far the worst of the two at video games. I've never played before. Give me a break. Ibuki complained in vain as Sakura had already stomped her several times straight in a fighting game that she had retired from playing since she herself found herself repeatedly being decimated by her little brother and by Naruto and his well-trained hands. Oh damn it. She said as Sakura knocked her out once more. Kei shook her head in amusement before addressing the kunoichi in the group of girls. So how do you like going to school at Tamagawa Minami High? You're adjusting way better to school here than Naruto did. We thought it was just something that he wasn't used to since he was a ninja, but now after seeing you pretty much fit right in, we know it was just more of him being weird. I'm not a ninja like Naruto. Ibuki said, remembering watching Naruto fight. They used the same weapons, but other than that there wasn't much they had in common other than the speed and general philosophy. But I love going to school here. No random ambushes from teachers trying to make sure we stay attentive, and there are so many cute boys in this town. I'm just upset that I have to leave and get back to my village before the sun sets. A satisfied Sakura set her controller down, content with the victories she finally got over some kind of living person. I wonder what happened to Naruto today. None of our friends have heard anything from him. He isn't around town causing any trouble anywhere. He's not at his house either, and he's not answering his phone. Kei held up her phone and waved it in Sakura's face. He sent the text 2 hours ago while we were still in class saying he was fine. At that point her phone vibrated with the signal of another message and Kay opened her phone before letting out a yell of alarm at what she saw. Ah. Oh wait, he has those stupid clones to do things like that for him, bad joke. What? Ibuki asked curiously, only for Kay to hold up her phone and show the ninja girl the same picture that Sakura was currently looking at on her own phone. Naruto swan diving off of the top of a skyscraper with no support. Ha, that's so cool. Where is he? Greetings from Tokyo. Sakura said, reading out the actual message that came with the picture. I'm fine. Not dead yet for all of you babies out there. I'm working for Karen right now. Wish me luck. Sakura sighed heavily after finishing reading. Karen, of course. Who else has the power to pull Naruto out of school? Kay laughed and put her phone back up in her bag. I'm sure he loved that. You mean Kanzuki Karen? Ibuki asked with a bit of whimsy, well aware of the daughter of the richest family in the Pacific and possibly the world. He works for her. Wow. I wonder what she makes him do, or how much she pays. She then noticed Sakura and Kay's phones and sighed. I want a cell phone so bad, but calm. Technology isn't allowed in my village. So, Kay replied with a shrug, you're a ninja. So sneak it in. You can do that, right? It's not like they check you whenever you go home. Ibuki's eyes lit up and she looked at Kay thankfully for the idea. You're just now considering this an option. You've been coming back and forth for 2 weeks. I don't like the idea of helping Ibuki-chan break her village's rules, Kay-chan. Sakura said, but relented a bit when she saw Ibuki's shining eyes begging her to agree that it was a good idea or at least okay for her to try. But I guess it's her choice in the end. Fine. I guess we can take her to the mall to get a phone before she has to go home. The fun-spirited female ninja jumped up in celebration and grabbed both girls to drag them on out of the house in a hurry. XXX. With Naruto, Tokyo, Japan. From the helicopter right to a limo, that was how Naruto, Karen, and her entourage traveled to wherever Karen was supposed to be taking him. Your family lives in Tokyo, right? Are we going to stop by their place for a bit? We are not going there today. Karen said, her cheek in her palm as she looked out the window. We are unable to get there by car anyway. Do you know how large my family's property is? You need a chartered plane to land at our airstrip just to get access. We have our own rivers, mountains, and even our own climate. You do not. Stop by the Kanzuki compound. Oh, that is such bullshit. Naruto spouted freely, not caring that Shibazaki was glaring at him for the use of such language around Karen. I'm not that stupid, Karen. That's totally impossible. Nobody owns that much property in Tokyo. Nothing is impossible. Not if you have enough money to afford it. I can assure you that we most certainly do. As she spoke, her eyes lit up slightly, getting the Kanzuki heiress to perk up noticeably. Ah, we have arrived at last. The limo slowly rolled to a stop and the two up front got out to open her door as she gave Naruto some instruction. Your opponent is more than likely inside. He owns this bathhouse. If he is not there, then at least we can learn where to find him within. Before he could ask for more information, Karen's door was opened and she gracefully stepped out. Of course, no one opened Naruto's door, so he did it himself and got out to quickly catch up Karen and her servants. Karen, who am I fighting anyway? You never told me. He didn't really care, but it was good to have some kind of background. They walked into the bathhouse to find that it was quite populated. Populated with sumo wrestlers of all people. The four visitors walked through the place with Karen not caring any less about the very large and underdressed men walking around them, even though Ishizaki kept trying to shield her eyes until she elbowed him in the stomach to get him to stop. Karen, Naruto said again, this time with more trepidation, who am I supposed to be fighting? He asked her again. She didn't say anything at first, she just smirked shrewdly at him before clearing her voice and speaking up quite loudly, Edmund Honda. Upon hearing that man's name called out, not only did Naruto freeze in place, the routine chatter of the place quieted down, even with the men in baths stopping what they were doing to see two kids and a pair of servants fully dressed. This is the bathhouse owned by Edmund Honda, is it not? I'm requesting his presence if he is here. Edmund Honda. Yeah, Naruto knew who that was. If you lived in Japan and kept up with athletics, you knew who that man was. And he was none too happy with it. Oh you bitch, oh you stone cold bitch. I am going to get you back so bad for this, Datbeo. A heavy series of footsteps started coming their way, getting Naruto to turn and see a man that was a few inches taller than him but was exceedingly larger as he was a sumo wrestler like most of the others in the building. He had his black hair up in a traditional Chanmage hairstyle, wore red kabuki makeup on his face around his eyes, and wore a short blue yukata over his massive frame. Eventually he reached the visiting party and looked down at Karen and a wide-eyed Naruto. Looking between them, the man spoke up in a rather authoritative voice, "I'm Edmund Honda. What reason are a pair of kids like you looking for me?" He spared another look at Naruto. "I don't think I can train him. He's too puny." "Puny? Fuck you," Naruto thought to himself. Before he could even respond to the man, Karen pointed at Naruto and spoke with full self-assurance and complete feeling of security, "He's here to fight you. Good luck, Naruto-san," she said as she and her entourage moved out of the way and got out of the vicinity. "I'm here to what him. Good luck." Naruto looked down at the floor and noticed something that had been concealed by the steam of the bathhouse. Blue tiles all over the floor with the exception of a large circle made of yellow tile and 2 yellow bars on the ground where he and Honda happened to be standing. A ring. That was just bad luck all around. "Ah, yo, what's up?" Naruto said, forcing a grin on his face and extending his hand to the large sumo. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meetacha." Honda gave an amicable smile and shook Naruto's hand heartily. "Ah, same," he said before continuing with something that Naruto wished he hadn't heard as the grip tightened. "I've heard of you. Fuck. Challenge accepted." In one move, Honda held onto Naruto's hand and swung him around overhead before throwing him away. Naruto screamed for dear life as his body sailed through the air and hit the wall with a mural of a sunrise, a mountain, and a man before he fell into a tub full of water. Everyone in the bathhouse let out a collective, "Ooh," when Naruto hit the wall, but started laughing once he fell into the water. "Can't you do better than that?" The elite sumo said with his hands proudly on his hips as the entire place seemed to get a kick out of the one-hit finish. Karen was not pleased by Naruto's performance thus far. "Come on, Naruto-san, you had better not let me down right out of the gate." Amid the laughter, Naruto pulled himself up from underneath the water, leaning against the side of the tub as he spat water out onto the floor and smoothed his soaked blonde hair back to keep it out of his eyes. "That was funny to you guys, huh?" The laughter continued, even from Honda as he still stood in the ring. While he was laughing, he pulled the top half of his yukata down off of his shoulders, showing that he was almost purely muscle. This did not intimidate Naruto any further than the prospect of fighting a sumo head-on though. "Well, here's my punchline." The water in the tub Naruto was in began to churn before a clone shot out of the water like a torpedo at Honda. The big man narrowly turned to the side to avoid the clone punching right into his belly as it rocketed past and hit the far wall, dispelling. The same thing happened again, and again, and again, at a faster and faster rate as clones just kept blasting out of the water, bombarding Honda, who simply couldn't dodge anymore. The joke was officially over as far as the sumo was concerned as he ground his feet down tightly and took up a sumo stance before rocketing off repeated hand thrusts in front of himself so fast that the eye couldn't see the movements. Hyaku no te binta 100-hand slap. The shots started hitting the clone so that he wouldn't be harmed, with popping noises going off repeatedly and smoke bursting in his face from the repeated demises of the Kage Bunshin. What talent! He's blocking back one of Naruto-san's strongest techniques with just brute force in his hands. Karen thought to herself as she saw Honda force back Naruto's clone barrage. His hands were moving so fast that she couldn't even see them move. Now it might have been the humidity of the bathhouse finally getting to her a bit, or it might have been the fact that she might have been stressing over the fight just a smidge, but a bead of sweat could be seen forming on the girl's head as her eyes raptly paid attention to the combat at hand. "Come on, Naruto-san," Karen said under her breath as raucous cheering from the other sumo wrestlers went up in the bathhouse. "You can do it. I'm certain of it." And just like that, the clones stopped flying out of the large tub with no original Naruto left in sight in the water, confusing the hell out of Honda. "I didn't knock the real one out during that pile-up, did I? I didn't notice if I did or not." Bunshin Kaden Kakuto Otoshi clone spinning heel drop. Naruto and 5 clones fell from the steam-concealed ceiling of the bathhouse and smashed Honda with axe kicks that slammed down on his head and shoulders. While his Uzumaki Naruto Mugen Rendon Naruto Uzumaki Infinite combo didn't bear him any fruit, Naruto didn't miss a beat in return as the original that struck E. Honda in the head with a kick landed first and lunged at the huge sumo without fear, striking him in the face several times, being forced to leave his feet each time to deliver a significant blow to the most vulnerable place on his body in Naruto's opinion, the head, instead of his large stomach. But each shot smacked audibly off of the large man's head and put a concerned hush over the bathhouse. Moving in towards E. Honda as he had him on his heels now, Naruto was stopped cold from continuing his barrage by a slap to the side of the head from a massive hand that he swore busted his eardrum and knocked him to the ground on the slick tile floor. Seeming to get angry at their creators being stricken, the clones attacked again with a vengeance, but E. Honda's defenses were back up and the best they got out of the exchange were a few punches and kicks to the body, which might as well have been them hitting sandbags, he was so thick. With a few sweeping arm swings, the clones met their demise, but in the end they brought Naruto enough time to stand back up and even to freely stumble around to regain his equilibrium as he bled from his ear to signify his busted eardrum. Why is one so young seeking out a battle against me? E. Honda figured to ask as he charged a wounded-looking Naruto down only to be surprised by Naruto's raw speed and ability to adapt to his injury, not knowing that Naruto had a demon within him that had already restored the portion of his inner ear that kept his brain balanced even if he still couldn't hear out of that ear. Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Naruto slammed the spinning blue orb into E. Honda, though he got his very large arms up to block a lot of the blow. Still, he was propelled away from Naruto like he was hit by a truck and smashed into the tile wall of the bathhouse, because my boss lady told me I had to. Naruto responded belatedly with the blood at this point mixing with his sweat to make the injury to his ear look far worse than it actually was. However, Karen was not concerned with Naruto's well-being if he was still able to fight on that level. I do not even know if he realized that he just utilized a brilliant strategy. She thought to herself, a thoughtful finger placed under her chin as she continued to observe. He could have cancelled his Rasengan attack, but he continued with it and instead of trying to hit Honda's body he settled for the arms, but that could be just as important a move to make. If Naruto broke, cracked, fractured, did something to E. Honda's arms in the last exchange he had either significantly lessened the effective, or had taken out a powerful weapon of the sumo completely. It was up for speculation if Naruto even realized what he had just done. He had opened a window for himself to win that fight if he realized what he had started and how to take advantage of it. But Karen wouldn't say a word about it aloud. No, she would not. If Naruto couldn't win this fight without someone barking orders to him or anyone advising him through it, then it was better to find out now than later when there were times she would not be around like she was right then. The outsides of E. Honda's forearms had angry dark purple spiral bruises on. Telltale marks of what could have occurred if he hadn't blocked Naruto's attack. He pulled himself off of the broken pieces of tile wall as they fell to the floor and stared Naruto down before letting out a chuckle. Strong, you're very skilled. He spared glance to Karen and raised an eyebrow before returning his attention to Naruto, and you've chosen quite a lovely young lady to undertake such an endeavor for. It is incredibly honorable of you to challenge me in order to win her heart. Naruto's jaw dropped in astonishment while Karen just smirked to show her amusement to the sumo's statement. What? Are you out of your mind? I should finish beating you up just out of principle. She's my boss and she hates me. I do not hate you, Naruto-san. I just dislike you with great intensity. You heard the lady. Naruto shouted at E. Honda as he formed 3 more Kage Bunshin to go up against E. Honda and made 3 hand seals to start another jutsu to hedge all of his bets. Chakura Tenki shot Chakra Spitfire. When Naruto cocked his head back to spit his chakra projectile at E. Honda smirked and went spread eagle as he seemed to gracefully and quickly float into the air headfirst directly over Naruto like a kite who due to the angle of his head got a good view of just how high into the air a 300+ pound man could get. On his way up he smashed his way through Naruto's clones with his head and defeated them. It was admittedly very impressive if it wasn't about to get so utterly terrifying. For a moment, Naruto swore that he had Sharingan, because he saw the next few moments in slow motion. In his mind absolutely everything slowed down as E. Honda flipped through the air over top of him to transfer into a direct butt drop. Sumo no Shibuki, sumo splash. E. Honda landed backside first on the ground only to hear a crack. Thinking that it was probably Naruto, ribs and or sternum. He stood up and looked down only to gasp when he saw a broken bucket full of purifying salt underneath him instead of a thoroughly smashed blonde teen boy. Why was this kid so damn tricky? At that moment a tray sailed through the air like a shuriken and bounced off of the back of Honda's head, knocking him to the ground with the force of the unexpected throw. Standing next to Karen was Naruto, with a manic grin on his face and his arm still extended from the throw of the pan. Why did you throw Ishizaki's serving tray? Karen asked him, crossing her arms over her chest and sounding slightly miffed at the wanton disregard for her servant's things. Especially a thing that was used to carry her refreshments. Because I don't have anything that won't kill him on me, and I know that the stupid thing is totally solid. Naruto replied, quite pleased with himself before he saw the reprimanding look on her face. Hey, he can have it back. Both kids looked over at Honda, seeing him standing back up with the tray in his hands, bending it angrily. Never mind. That is coming out of your payment, and if you lose this fight you will still pay for that. Did that mean she wouldn't pay him if he lost? He didn't have the time to think of that, instead choosing to attack again against the sumo that was progressively growing angrier. Honda didn't know what to make of Naruto. One moment he fought directly with honor, going right at the man, and the next he was getting hits from the blind spot, tactically retreating and hitting him with random objects like the tray. He was still twice Naruto's size though. And Naruto was directly charging him again. But it wasn't as direct as Naruto wanted him to think it was. Right before getting within Honda's effective range of reach, Naruto quickly formed his cross-hand seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. 3 shadow clones popped into existence and the first Naruto dove at Honda. The sumo caught the first boy as a reflex and simply threw him backwards over his head. The second Naruto had done the same thing as the first, half a second after the first one, shoving both feet into Honda's fully exposed stomach due to his throwing the first clone over his head and doubling him over. The third Naruto jumped up and delivered a hard punt kick to Honda's head that snapped his head up and back, sending blood flying into the air. With a flourish, the last and the original Naruto finished with a jumping punch that slammed right into the mammoth man's face, and down he went like a tree, falling backwards onto the ground with Naruto collapsing to the ground along with him due to the angle of the attack. Good heavens! Shibazaki said in amazement at the utter brutality and simplistic misdirection of Naruto's previous attack. Naruto had to hit Honda with upwards of 5 punches in order to register the same damage that Honda could deal with one. He spared a glance towards his mistress Karen who was watching the fight intently at this point, not speaking or making any comments. Children should not fight like this. Naruto pulled himself up off of the floor, dripping sweat and a little bit of blood as the humidity inside of the bathhouse was smothering while engaging in such a physical activity. When he felt Honda's hand wrap around his shin and looked down to find a very angry sumo holding onto his leg with blood running down his face above his brow, Naruto felt like he was in some kind of monster movie. With surprising agility and scary strength, Honda sprang up to his feet and slammed Naruto to the ground in one move, depositing him face first onto the tile floor. Before Naruto could even let out a groan of pain, a palm strike was delivered to his back from above that cracked the tile beneath him. Ga. Oicho Neguru, Oicho throw, Honda muttered as he pulled his hand off of Naruto and grabbed him by the back of the collar to lift him off of the ground. That wasn't bad at all. You've done very well for yourself. Go home. Heal up. Fight again another day, little one. He heard Naruto mumble and slur something under his breath that he couldn't hear. What was that? The slurring was just a feint to get Honda to put his head closer to Naruto's mouth in order to hear him better. Chakura Tenki shot Chakra Spitfire. The blast radius exploded off of the side of Honda's head and in Naruto's own face, but the sumo dropped Naruto to the ground where he landed on his feet with pops and cracks of his back that showed how unhealthy he happened to be at that moment and that it wasn't all just acting. A sneak attack from Naruto's move left scorching injuries on the entire right side of Honda's face, knocking his hairstyle out of place and forcing him to stumble back, both of his eyes bloodshot red from the concussive damage of the chakra shot bouncing and exploding off of his head. Naruto formed one Kage Bunshin that was crouching, its back in just as bad shape as his, but it was able to do its job as Naruto held his right hand to the clone and both of them formed a denser, considerably bigger Rasengan between them. Honda was not willing to try and block again, With the two clones holding the dangerous-looking orb, he set himself in an intense sumo stance preparing for Naruto to make his move. Naruto stood up and he and his clone ran forward to charge Honda down, who responded by shooting his hands out at Naruto in a blur, preparing to overwhelm him. Hyaku no Te Binta, 100-hand slap. Odama Rasengan, Great Ball Rasengan. The large ball of chakra hit against Honda's rapidly thrusting hands with the sound of a belt sander. Even though he stood upright, Honda's entire body started sliding back as if he was a sled on an icy slope. With a mighty final yell, Naruto drove Honda into the wall with an explosion erupting from that spot and debris from the tile flying everywhere. Karen couldn't help but smile as she heard a pained grunt come from the place where Naruto and Honda had hit the wall, and she saw that Honda was sitting against a crater in the wall, his arms visibly broken with the top layer of skin from his hands to the elbow mangled like tissue paper. Breathing heavily, Naruto looked down at Honda. "You're strong, but don't ever underestimate me," he said before turning and walking out of the bathhouse, holding his back and hoping that it would only take an hour or so for to slip his vertebrae back where it was meant to be from its slightly askew state. He stopped when he heard Karen clapping from where she had been standing with her entourage and took a moment to point at her. "Don't ever do that again." With a huff, Karen watched as Naruto walked out, silently whining about his back, swearing he slipped a disc or two as he went outside into the early evening air. And just what is he so upset about? She asked Shibazaki and Ishizaki, who was cradling his bent-up serving platter like something precious. He won, didn't he? XXX. 2 days later, Aohura City. Arcade. "Are you still mad at her, Tem?" Batsu asked Naruto as he was seated and turning the wheel of a racing game. The two had met up after Batsu's school let out to do something random, mostly because Batsu had not heard the story of Naruto going to Tokyo to fight one of the most famous sumo wrestlers in the entire world in its entirety. "I don't get it. You won. That Kanzuki Karen definitely isn't the nicest girl I've ever met for sure, but I don't get why you're still pissed off at her. When she said she wanted me to start winning fights, I didn't think the first person she'd make me go up against would be that famous. I actually knew who this guy was without being told first," Naruto said, leaning against the racing chair of Batsu as his friend fell into 4th place. "I can still feel the guy cracking my ribs." Batsu was listening, but he didn't seem to be caring too much or seeing the problem. "Yeah, I don't see what the problem here is. You just got a win inside of the top 10 of that site's last listing. Be happy, have a Coke and a smile, and shut the fuck up." "Okay," Naruto said, with his eye twitching, wishing that he could kick the chair hard enough to dislodge Batsu without breaking the damn thing. "Would you fight Honda right now?" "What am I fighting him for?" "Nothing," Naruto replied. "You're not fighting him for anything. He didn't do anything to you, you're fighting him just because. And he's coming to take your head out, by the way." A scoff came from Batsu at the rather obvious answer. "A street punk." The argument could be made that Batsu was one, but crazy enough to fight the number 7 ranked street fighter in Japan for nothing. "Absolutely not, hell no, I wouldn't fight him for no reason. I like not going to the hospital for stupid reasons, thank you." "That's the point," Naruto stated with a slight kick to Batsu's racing chair as he made his way to another machine and put in his coins to begin playing a side-scrolling beat-em-up game. "I don't like surprises like that. If that's how it's going to go every time, then I might as well tell Karen that I'm going back on the deal right now. I was not aware that ninja quit their missions." Batsu's head snapped around and he crashed his game car once he heard the female voice, seeing Karen standing there with her 2 attendants. Naruto, on the other hand, hadn't turned around at all, but he did have a bit of a scowl on his face. "How do you know I was here?" Naruto asked without turning around. Deadpanning a look at Naruto, Batsu responded instead of Karen, "You stick out like a sore thumb and you hang out in specific places. You're not as hard to find as you think you are, Tem. You have been skipping school ever since your last victory and you haven't picked up your business phone once." Karen stated, walking over to the arcade game that Naruto was playing, her eyes drifting towards his hands and wondering what he saw in such a thing. "Are you still upset with me? I paid you immediately upon our return to my. It's not the money, Karen." Naruto snapped suddenly, not caring about the game any longer and walking away from the machine altogether. "You threw me into a fight with one of the most dangerous guys in the world, and you didn't even tell me. I went in cold. What am I? Are we actually friends like I thought we could be, or am I just some asset? He saw her open her mouth and cut her off. If you give me that, I'm a commoner. Crap, I swear we will be fighting right here. Batsu wasn't expecting Naruto to just take off and was prepared to follow after his buddy. Naruto, where are you? He stopped trying to go after him when he saw Naruto turn his head towards him and shake it. Sigh, alright. I'll call you later then. For once when dealing with Naruto's hot-headed personality, Karen wasn't smirking in good humor out of intentionally trying to push buttons. It was easy to get Naruto to overreact, but he never legitimately flipped out before. I was simply separating business and personal affairs. You are a ninja, why can't you? Because I can't do that with friends. I won't. Naruto's gait slowed when he felt Karen was following him, but he started walking when he felt Shibazaki and Ishizaki following her like always. She thought she would catch up to him and they could hash out something that was 2 days overdue, but when he started walking away again she realized that her entourage was to blame. He's giving me a choice, to make this professional or personal. She narrowed her eyes at his back once she saw him make his way outside the arcade and turned to address her two attendants. You two, remain here while I have a conversation with Naruto-san. But Kanzuki-sama, you saw how angry he was. If he attacks you, Shibazaki started to say until a sharp glare from Karen cut him off. If he attacks me you would only be good for a human shield in that situation. Karen said, turning to head outside after Naruto. Naruto-san would rip you apart like stationery in 3 seconds or less. With that said, she walked outside to see Naruto attracting a measure of attention by sitting atop a streetlight. She was not about to climb a streetlight to have a conversation and she was not about to yell it up to him, so she stomped her foot on the ground, the reverberation of her footstep actually getting his attention. She pointed to the limo on the curb with a measure of authority. Get in the car, Naruto-san. Naruto looked down at her before looking back off in the distance. No. Get in the car right now. I'm not going on a mission for you right now, I don't feel like it. And then instead of his patience this time it was hers that ran out. Get in the damn car. I am trying to have a private and personal conversation with you, and I cannot do that with you perched on the streetlight like a crow. Now get down or I will make you. That was a completely new experience. Naruto had never seen Karen lose her cool for a single moment before. Not once. She was always in control of, well, everything, especially her own emotions. She was composed and confident. And he could still see the confidence, but none of the composure. You're gonna make me. How are you going to make me do anything that I don't want to do? She didn't reply this time, just looking up at him angrily and pointing once more with authority at the limo with all of the people officially stopping to look at the two of them. She turned towards them and dared anyone to consider that she had been in the middle of a scene and everyone just went back to normal as if nothing happened. Sparing one last intent glance up at Naruto, she opened the back door to the limo and got in before shutting the door. Sometimes I hate my job. Naruto dropped down from the streetlight and onto the sidewalk where he got directly into Karen's limousine and saw her sitting towards the back, her arms crossed over her chest, a leg over the other that was shaking rather impatiently with her brown eyes staring him down. Climbing into the long seat directly across from her, he sat down and they just sat there staring at each other for a while until Naruto spoke up. Well, I am just taking a bit of time to think, Karen said in a terse voice, to think about why on earth you would want to mess up a sure thing based solely off a one bout of miscommunication. I made a mistake, and I freely admit that in hindsight. Perhaps I was impatient, but the way you reacted in return was childish. He opened his mouth and this time she cut him off. Something that is not expected or encouraged in an assassin and a mercenary, no matter what their age. Well, now that they had actually faced off and had a bit of a blow-up between them already, it felt like the air was cleared a bit and Naruto didn't feel so uptight anymore. You're confusing me. I don't know if you're my boss, my rival, my friend, my manager. What? I've always been your employer. Karen replied matter-of-factly, we first met only because I hired you. Whenever you are around me it is due to me summoning you for work purposes. She stopped when she saw that Naruto was looking like he was just about to start laughing. What is it that you find funny? Naruto pointed at Karen and snickered a bit. The reason you first hired me was to fuck with Sakura-chan after you two fought and you lost to her. Remember the jobs you made me do? You made me dust your whole grand parlor because I can't go home until a mission is done and you thought it would take me months to finish. It took 3 hours with clones. You made me do the stupidest stuff because you thought I'd complain to Sakura-chan or I'd be too tired to spend time with her and it would mess with her head. How'd that work? It didn't. Karen said, remembering with a bit of a smile how efficiently Naruto handled every single stupid and seemingly insurmountable chore she gave him back when they first met last year. He'd complain a bit about how he was supposed to be a killer and then he'd clean a massive part of her home full of nooks and crannies and knickknacks, or wash and wax all of her vehicles, or run the stupidest, most obscure and cumbersome errands in Aohura's city for her, and he would make it look easy. Eventually she simply stopped trying to get to Sakura and started legitimately hiring him instead of just trying to mess with him. And your jobs haven't been actual jobs for the last 6 months. It might as well be me just hanging out with you. Naruto said, leaning back in his seat with a grin as he had a point to hone in on. As a matter of fact that's all they are, me and you hanging out, or me getting back at somebody for you. Nonsense. Not really. Naruto was really getting insistent in his point. In his own mind he was gaining momentum. Before this whole fighting business started, do you remember the last 5 things you hired me to do? Karen looked away from him out of the darkly tinted windows but nodded regardless. Yeah you do. How is riding with you on your yacht a mission? Who knows what could happen at sea? A ninja like you has survival skills. You were useful. Yeah, for fishing, diving off of your sail, and watching you tan all day long. Despite the sarcasm lacing his voice, that was actually a very good day for Naruto. Very relaxing. Okay, well what about going shopping with you in Tokyo? It was annoying as hell after a while, but that's not a real mission. It was in case of protection. You're the last rich girl on the face of the planet that needs to be protected by anybody and you know it. Naruto said as he could see Karen's face beginning to turn red and decided to go in for the kill. Admit it, the only difference between me and a hooker at that point was that hookers actually got. Alright, Karen finally exclaimed, kicking Naruto in the shin to get him to shut up as her face was atomic red at this point due to the inflection of what he was about to say. I understand your point. I will admit that they weren't conventional jobs for a mercenary. Feeling like his point was proven, Naruto nodded astutely. Yep. They were things I'd do with a friend. And all I have to say about that is that if you wanted to hang out with me you never had to pay me to do it. You're in the friend phone, not the business phone. See. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of crap, outdated by 10 years prepaid phone with only 10 minutes left on it, business. He then pulled out his other phone that he bought to spoil himself earlier that year and showed Karen her contact info along with the picture he had taken the other day. Friend. And friends don't treat friends like cockfight roosters. So they were friends. Out of an entire world full of people that would kiss her ass once they learned of who she was, she had met some people that didn't care that much about such a thing, and here was one. While she may have resented what she saw, a lack of respect from people like Naruto and to a far lesser extent Sakura, they were the closest people to her outside of Shibazaki and Ishizaki. But I knew that you could win that fight. Karen argued in return. You can try to hold back all you want to against your friends and against me, but I know that you are more skilled than you appear. If you look past the idiocy, the flagrant arrogance, the stupid look you have often on your face, if one can look past these things then it's clear that you are a fantastic fighter. And I want that fighter to become the best in the world so that I can beat him. Yes, she just insulted him several times right to his face without missing a beat, but that was who Karen was and Naruto had accepted that months ago. She was brutally honest if nothing else, and sometimes that came off with her seeming like something of a haughty, stone-cold bitch. She was most certainly not stone cold though, as evident by her next action. Fine, it seemed like Karen was accepting that if she actually wanted Naruto to remain cordial to her she had to treat him differently from someone that she paid. Because even though she paid him too, it was not because he needed the money. I suppose I will warn you well in advance the next time instead of acting so hastily. Good. Naruto chirped brightly as they had come to an understanding. I always knew you were a good girl, Karen. I keep telling people but they don't belie. But, cut in Karen, moving right in front of Naruto to hold up one finger between herself and him. I still expect you to do as I instructed of you. At the beginning of the new year there will be a rather large open tournament. You will enter, you will win. Understood. In a defiant manner, Naruto stared Karen down as she was barely a foot away from him in order to assert her point. It seemed to be a standoff that seemed to be happening more days than in the past nowadays, but one with no real malice behind it. It was more or less Karen's way of saying, do what I say or no money for you and I'll find some way to make you miserable after you refuse. It sounded like he had a choice in the wording of her requests, but there really wasn't much of one. However, on Naruto's side of the stare-off, it was Naruto trying to say, are you asking me or telling me? Even though it's nice I don't need your money and if you try to get me back, don't start something you can't finish. It was the same song and dance as always, right down to the ending, okay. I'll fight in it, and I'll win it, all for my vain, prissy boss lady, and her money. What was the worst that could happen? It wasn't like there could be too many people out there as tough as Honda that would come to a tournament that was only national at best, right? Good. I'm glad that matter was settled so easily. Karen remarked as she opened the door to the limousine and stepped outside, now get out of my car. With that, Naruto climbed out of the limousine and shoved his hands into his pockets as they started to walk away back into the arcade. The air between them was no longer as tense as before and it felt much better all around. You're still going to treat me like you own me, aren't you? It was like everything was back to normal again. Why, naturally, of course. The pleasant smirk on Karen's face certainly said that everything was back to normal. Please note that it is only due to the fact that I do indeed own you, Naruto-san. No matter what you may believe to the contrary. Nobody owns me, they rent me. Character profile. Name: Edmund Honda. Nationality: Japan. Gender: male. Age: 27. Birthday: November 3rd. Height, weight: 6 feet 1/302 of a pound. Blood type: unknown. Likes: baths, nabayaki, tiramisu, chankonab, sandwiches, noodles. Dislikes: indecisiveness, dishonoring his family, chocolate cookies, rice vermicelli. Hobbies: cooking. Rivals: Zangief. Fighting style: sumo. Current techniques: Hyaku no te binta, 100 hand slap, sumo gyorai, sumo headbutt, sumo no shibuki, sumo splash, oicho neguru, oicho throw, oni muso, peerless demon. Hyper techniques: Kyukyoku no Satsujin Zutsuki, ultimate killer headbutt, Orochi Shandaki, great snake breaker. Background: a powerful and skilled sumo wrestler focused on becoming known as the best of all time. Edmund Honda is currently the rank below the rare and highest level of sumo wrestlers, Yokozuna, and stands with the highly revered rank of Ozeki. Upset that the world does not view sumo with the same respect and prestige of the Japanese, Honda began challenging fighters all over the world to prove his own strength and to show that sumo wrestlers are among the best fighters in the entire world, one day wishing to achieve the final title of Yokozuna. Time: Sakura called out as Naruto rounded the track outside of the school for the 4th time, and that's 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Damn it! Naruto shouted with his hands on top of his head as he took a bunch of deep breaths showing a bit of exhaustion. I need to get faster, he said, huffing and puffing before setting himself back down in a running stance to prepare to run again. Mark me, Sakura-chan, I'm breaking 2 minutes and 30 seconds this time, Datbeo. Instead of calling him out to let him run his laps again, Sakura just stripped the vest with the parachute and the weights attached from his back and held it up. Naruto, it's been 20 minutes and you're running a full mile in under 2 minutes and 30 seconds consistently. I've got to keep trying to get better at what I'm good at, Sakura-chan. Naruto said as he pushed himself up and stretched his legs out. The tournament I'm entering is at the start of the year and it's past the middle of October. I've got to get the skills I have airtight. The under 2 minutes one you ran last week was a total anomaly, you'll never break that again. Sakura looked at the vest in her hands distastefully. Not again while you're wearing this thing anyway. She threw it aside and it formed a small crater and a dust cloud upon hitting the ground. How'd coach even let you mess that resistance vest up the way you did anyway? Because the parachute wasn't enough to slow me down too much by itself, Naruto said as he and Sakura went back to join their other friends in gym class. With a grin, Naruto walked past many of the male students that had stopped to gawk at the freshman running faster than any other recorded person, even with a parachute on his back. In case you were wondering, that's what speed looks like. Sakura rolled her eyes as Ibuki ran up to them from where she had been before. Speed, huh? You want to race me sometime? I bet I'm faster than you. she teased, poking him on the nose to set off his little temper that she had gotten used to pushing the buttons to by now. You want to race? Naruto replied with a challenging grin after rubbing the spot on his nose where she poked it. Bring it on, I'll leave you right in the dust, Ibuki. I don't have the parachute and the weights on either, so bring it. No, 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 no. Sakura grabbed the shoulders of both ninja before they could take off running. All I've been doing is watching someone faster than me run around a circle for 25 minutes. I'm not about to watch the two of you make me feel even slower. Why don't we ever play baseball during gym? Or why don't we ever just spar like normal? All Naruto ever wants to do during gym is run. Speed isn't everything, you know. A thumbs down came from Ibuki at that suggestion, for a ninja speed is kind of important. And it's also because I hate baseball and we can never get enough people. A mischievous smirk crossed the young Kunoichi's face, who wants to play baseball with a pair of ninja that can jump 15 feet in the air and steal bases without needing to get a jump on the pitcher. You're not very nice with the home runs either, Sakura-chan. She started looking around for someone else though. I haven't seen Kei-chan all period. Where's she? Kei-chan found a way to get herself excused from gym for outside activities. Sakura said, something about her allergies. Didn't know she had any really. Her eyes then widened in realization, wait, Kei-chan doesn't have allergies at all. But she had a signed note from a doctor and her mother. What? Naruto said abruptly without being prompted, I didn't forge Kei's mom's signature and a fake doctor's signature because she gave me a coupon for 6 months free ramen. You're crazy, Sakura-chan, Naruto said with a sheepish grin. I didn't say anything about you. Sakura gave Naruto a reprimanding stare that had him sweating bullets until she sighed and ran a hand over her own forehead. What am I going to do with you, Naruto? You're going to get yourself into some serious trouble one day. Ibuki rolled her eyes and pointed a thumb at Naruto. Once again, he's a ninja, Sakura-chan. We do things that would get us in trouble if we get caught, so we just don't get caught. Kei-chan is smart enough to know better than to say anything about it. Well, when I do get caught one day you can tell me that you told me so and I'll shut up about it. Naruto said to Sakura as they made it inside and split up to head to their separate locker rooms for boys and girls. See you guys later. With that, Naruto went into the boys' locker room and went right to his locker to change out of gym clothes back into his uniform. Hey, Uzumaki is in the top 50 fighters in Japan after the new polls went out. Wasn't he barely breaking number 75 during the last poll? Yeah, but there's a story going out that he called out Edmund Honda and fought his way through an entire stable of sumo wrestlers just to beat Honda himself. Then I heard he broke his arms to teach him a lesson for not coming out and fighting him directly. Naruto palmed his face and shook his head. What a stupid rumor. A whole stable full of sumo wrestlers. He seriously hated the dirt sheet aspect of that website, as when confirmed fight specs were minimal there would be tons of speculation over what happened during them, and the posters on the site had a serious case of overactive imaginations. I heard he won that fight, then got down on one knee to propose to some girl right there on the spot. That dog. He hangs out with the strongest girl in school, her cute friend, and the new girl too. And that was all he wanted to hear out of the peanut gallery. I didn't propose to Karen. My fucking back was killing me and I kneeled down. Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs, getting everyone in the locker room to stop changing and stare at him. Guys even started looking at him from over their lockers in other rows, making Naruto feel self-conscious. He quickly changed his clothes and hastily made his way out of the locker room before something weird happened. His last few weeks had been spent by him trying to hone his taijutsu better against a wide variety of sparring partners. Sakura as a base and the main one he trained against due to their proximity, Ibuki when he wanted to fight someone that could match speed with him, Batsu when he wanted a fight that would inevitably degenerate into a brawl. He was never going to have dojo refined technique, but he could still stand to clean up his fighting style better to minimize damage. Who knew when he'd fight someone that could potentially punish him like Honda again. An absent-minded Naruto walked out of the boys' locker room and did not notice Ibuki hanging from the ceiling directly above the door waiting on him to walk out, a part of a game they played to see if they could sneak attack the other and then make sure the other didn't get them back in response. And this is when she dropped from the ceiling directly landing on his back and flattening him right to the ground. Oh come on, that wasn't even fun. Ibuki said as she sat on his back, Her tanuki, which had taken up the practice of hiding itself during school hours, chewing on his ankle at the same time. You weren't even trying that time. You're so lucky I wasn't an actual assassin. Ibuki pouted as she stood up and allowed Naruto back up off of the ground. Ow. Naruto mumbled before pulling himself up off of the floor, wiping the dirt and dust bunnies from his face. Sorry. Just thinking about my fights, he said as he picked Don off of his ankle by the scruff of his neck and threw him at his fellow ninja. Ibuki caught Don, who scrambled up her shoulder and let out a sigh at hearing Naruto's ever-present problem. She liked to help, that much was true, but she came to school in order to not be a ninja for a while. That was really counterproductive when Naruto asked her to spar after school. Sometimes, you need to take a rest for a bit. Kanzuki-san hasn't sent you on any fights in a while, so you don't have to be on edge all the time preparing for your tournament. Take a break. Doing what? Anything. Anything fun. Anything relaxing. Ibuki shouted at him as they began to walk outside of the school to go home for the day. What do you do when you aren't working or training? It took Naruto a second to think about it, as it wasn't a straightforward question at all. He wanted to say hanging out with such and such, but no matter who he would more than likely bring up, it usually turned into either a training session, a tag-along on a job, or somehow they'd wind up getting into some kind of fight somewhere. It was a vicious cycle of sorts. Finally he came up with an answer that he felt was appropriate for the situation at hand: sleep and go to the arcade. When was the last time you went to the arcade, as boring as even that sounds? 4 weeks. Upon receiving that half-assed response from Naruto, Ibuki just shook her head, ponytail swishing as she gestured for Naruto to follow her outside where Sakura and Kei were waiting on them. Okay, I think we should call an intervention. Naruto doesn't know how to relax. I do too. Naruto responded, sounding quite offended. No you don't. It's why you suck at meditating. Ibuki retorted, getting a glowering stare from Naruto. Don't give me that look, it's true. You don't know how to sit still for long enough to get anything out of it. You're going to burn out like I did one of these days. She's right, Naruto, added Sakura, who found Naruto's frown fixated on her from that point. You're busy all the time. Ever since I've known you, all you do is just push, push, push. You never give yourself any real downtime. Kids aren't supposed to do that. Hello. Ibuki pointed at herself, referencing her own repeated, non-stop training since youth. I said they aren't supposed to, clarified the brown-haired female fighter, and Ibuki-chan is right. You need to do something calming every once in a while. Oh, that is such a load of crap, Sakura-chan, Naruto said, not paying this conversation much mind at all. That's like the pot calling the fucking kettle black. You train every single goddamn day, just as hard as I do. When I go home you're still training. I've got to train harder than you because I'm playing catch up with skills that aren't mine. If I don't do it you'll just run away ahead of me, and if you get that far ahead then how far ahead will? Sakura defended amicably before Naruto let out a loud groan and cut in. If you finish that sentence with anything involving Ryu, I'm going home. Naruto said, pointing to the rooftops that he just so happened to be prepared to take to in order to split, right now. I'm not even going to listen to the rest of what you have to say. Sakura pouted, knowing that if he wasn't teasing her about Ryu he was probably not even going to listen to anything involving him. He was stubborn like a mule, and if she did he probably would run off. Fine. But this isn't about me, it's about you. Do something to chill out every once in a while instead of just working. Like go on a date or something. Ibuki interjected again abruptly. You're a decent looking guy, Naruto. If you weren't so hyper-focused on fighting all the time you could probably get a cute girlfriend. A lot of girls don't really like the whole fighting aspect though, just so you know. Sakura-chan likes fighters. No, she likes a fighter, and that fighter isn't you. She doesn't like them all in general. Just one, and we all know who that is by now. The correction from Kei got a blush out of Sakura. When were they going to stop messing with her about how she liked Ryu? It had to get old at some point, didn't it? Maybe not, but from Kei too it was a little much. But I think Ibuki-chan is right. You do need something like that to teach you to calm down a bit. Just a concerned friend speaking here. In order to try and test this little theory, Sakura made sure she was in plain and clear sight of Naruto before suddenly reaching towards the top of her own head. Her proximity to Naruto upon doing so got him to react as if someone were about to strike at him. His body tensed and he turned towards her to prepare to intercept the blow that was never to be. You see, you are on edge. Calm down. Nobody's going to hurt you here. I like to blame whatever diet he was getting in America. Kay said, nodding to herself as if she had found some kind of point to be made. I heard about all of the sugar and other things those kids get there all the time. Poor Naruto must have been cranked out of his mind before he moved here. It can't be natural for someone to be as wound up as he is all of the time. Okay, sure, let's go with that. Naruto said under his breath with a roll of his eyes. What else was he going to say? Would he say, no, it's actually an all-powerful source of energy inside of my body that wants to destroy all of mankind that keeps me hyper? Because that would have just gone over great. He could just tell without even saying it, I'm not that bad. Yeah, you are. He needed more friends at that school that were guys and that weren't afraid of him. Getting triple-teamed in an argument by girls was not his specialty, and fending off, especially when they all seemed to sync up and say something definite in unison. Clones couldn't fight that advantage off because it would be an artificial recreation. And that just wasn't as effective at all. Until then he was at the mercy and whim of the three girls as far as this dispute went. Well, fine. Naruto eventually conceded for his remaining sanity. Sake, so since you three are so smart, what do I do for dealing with this? Maybe giving up would make this go easier. I like Ibuki-chan's idea. Sakura said, trying to contribute to solving the issue at hand. You should go on a date. Put those outfits I bought you for your birthday to good use and dress nice for once. A date with who? Naruto responded skeptically. Girls don't like me, and both of you have reasons for not doing it. That's the only reason I can think that I haven't gone on one with either of you before. Sakura had nothing but Ryu on the brain and would compare every boy to him, and Kei was his friend by way of Sakura at first. She and Naruto eventually became friends off of each other's own merits, but it was originally because Sakura was the link that joined them. Of course, that question of who would possibly go do something with him ended with Ibuki swatting him on the back of his head. You're really forgetting someone close to you, aren't you? Think a little bit harder, why don't you? Naruto blinked before squinting his eyes at her. If you're suggesting I go on a date with Karen, you're out of your mind. She'd laugh right in my face, and then the whole thing would be miserable even if she did say yes. It's just not a good idea. No dummy, I'm talking about me. You. Giving Ibuki a confused look, Sakura wondered just how that entire process would work out. Wait, you always have to get back to your village after school. You only have like 2 hours to do anything afterwards before going home. How are you going to go on a date with Naruto? A sly look came over the kunoichi of the group's face at the question. Oh, all it'll take is a bit of misdirection and cunning. She turned to Naruto with big doe eyes before speaking again. You know that thing you do that can transform you into other people. How well can you make yourself look like me? XXX. 2 days later, 4 hours after school's end, Naruto's apartment. This is either going to be really good or really bad. Naruto thought to himself as he stood in his bathroom and finished getting himself ready to go. How he let himself get talked into this stupid idea was beyond him. A date. He hadn't even thought of trying to date anyone ever, not since he had last tried to do so with the Sakura from his world. Seeing how hard that was with someone he had known for years, he didn't really want to try it again in a place where no one knew him. I'm the best damn ninja alive. What's there to think about here? I can pull a date off. Prepared to carry that attitude into whatever awaited him that night, Naruto left his bathroom in more casual clothes than the school uniform he wore day in and day out, only to jump back with a start upon finding someone in his room. Sighing in relief when he recognized the person sitting on his bed, Naruto put his hand on his heart to show the jolt he had received. Ibuki, stop breaking into my house. But it's so easy. The rather cheerful-sounding kunoichi said, sitting with one leg crossed over the other on Naruto's bed, and there's no way I was going to wait outside for you. You didn't have to do that either. Naruto said, crossing his arms over his chest as he looked her over. She still had her hair up in its usual manner, but she wore a black evening dress and a dark blue jacket over top of it. On her feet she had black wrap-around dress shoes and looked very good, as she must have known because she smirked when she caught him staring. Don't give me that look. I thought we were supposed to meet up downtown. After you got my clone into place. Ibuki hopped off of the bed with an excited expression on her face. I couldn't wait. And it was easy getting your clone to the village. All I had to do was hold his hand while I had him blindfolded so that he didn't see where it was. It'll be so easy, all your clone has to do is act like me until I can sneak back in. See, easy. Ibuki grabbed him by his arm and started to drag him out of the apartment. Come on, let's go. XXX. Meanwhile, Ibuki's unnamed ninja village. An Ibuki-hanged Naruto Kage Bunshin sat in her room wearing her ninja clothes and staring at its surroundings. Ibuki had taken the clone's blindfold off once they reached the outskirts of the village and gave it directions before taking off back to Aohura City, which would have taken her another hour or so to return to. The place reminded him a bit of Konoha, except that the buildings were more of the classical variety than the sprawling city setup that Konoha had. It still had tons of trees and nature, with people moving about at high speeds all around him. It made him feel a bit like he was at home. But he had to remember that there were no headbands to distinguish who was a ninja, because everybody was a ninja. He stayed on edge for most of the time until he made it to Ibuki's place of residence with other students under a particular teacher and got to her room. This place is actually kind of cool. Naruto in Ibuki's form and voice admitted to Dawn as the tanuki lay on the bed, seemingly not caring one way or the other about anything. I can see how it would drive her nuts after a while though. Living in the cities of this world kind of got Naruto used to the amenities that came with such an experience. While he didn't really watch TV or use the internet too often, there were still tons of things this world had that he did not in his own. Imagine being Ibuki and knowing that those things existed but not being able to get to them. The clone certainly hoped that the boss was able to show her a good time tonight for both of their sakes. But for the time being, the clone was bored. Very, very bored. With no knowledge of what there was to do for kicks in this village, it had nowhere to go but to Ibuki's room, where it planned on staying to minimize the risk of being discovered as fake. Not really the most exciting way to spend time in a ninja village for the first time in over 3 years, but one would take what one could get. I guess she was right when she said that all they do around here is train. Naruto's clone said to Dawn, but mostly to itself before looking over Ibuki's form that he had hanged himself into. The clone said inquisitively, as if it were pondering over the merits and ethics of its next actions before shrugging and placing both hands on Ibuki's chest, more or less groping itself. Man, Ibuki is firm. All the training was what the clone assumed. It certainly did her body good. In response, Dawn cracked an eye from his attempted slumber and growled at Naruto clone for besmirching his owner's form with his grubby hands. "Oh, whatever, you stupid rat," Naruto said, still getting a good feel of what Ibuki felt like. "You do worse stuff every day with Ibuki, and Sakura-chan just because you're an animal. At least this is technically my body." He could swear the tanuki smirked at him with a gleam in its eye when he brought up the bountiful chest hugs that it got from girls every single day just for being furry and cute. "Yeah, that's what I thought." While Naruto clone continued to fondle the form that it had transformed into and commit it to memory for his creator's sake, a knock came at Ibuki's door that startled the incognito doppelganger. Almost jumping off of Ibuki's bed in surprise, it regained its composure to salvage the situation. Yes. "Who's there?" "Ibuki-chan. Are you alright? You haven't come out at all since you came back from school. Is everything okay?" The voice of a male the age of Ibuki and Naruto came from the other side of her door, and Naruto clone quickly responded in Ibuki's stead. "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just that the trip back from Aohura City was a bit of a killer today. I think I'll turn in early for the night." "Okay. But we've got to get through with evening training first." "Come on." Naruto clone blanched. Ibuki didn't say anything about evening training, she just said that he had to be her right down to the letter, and maybe one could construe that with keeping up her training schedule as well. Fine. It was better than sitting in the room all night waiting for the real Ibuki to show back up just so that it could dispel, and maybe it'd be fun to see just what kind of training Ibuki did regularly. "Sure. I'll be right out in a moment. Just don't be late, okay? Sanju-sensei's not the most patient guy. Trust me, I know," Naruto said in Ibuki's form before getting up out of the bed amid the snickers of Dawn. "Oh, shush up, damn you." XXX. With Naruto and Ibuki, Aohura City, outside of a movie theater. The first thing that Naruto could think of to do was something simple, like just take Ibuki to a movie. Rather lame, but he had never really been on a date before and assumed that would be the obvious thing to do. It was entertaining and it gave him at least an hour and a half to think of something else for them to do. She didn't seem to find it a cop-out course of action though, as Ibuki had thought it a great idea and took to the whole thing with gusto. She clearly wasn't very hard to please and that made for a very enjoyable start to the date. "Oh, that's just impossible," Ibuki said, hanging off of Naruto's arm as they exited the theater. The movie they went to see was some movie with a giant monster out to destroy a large city, which led to the conversation the two were having. "There's no way that's true." "It's really the truth," Naruto assured her with a big grin on his face. "I summoned this big toad before out of thin air, bigger than that stupid monster in the movie. I can't do it anymore, I've tried. But I used to be able to. Is it that hard to believe?" "Yeah, it is," laughed Ibuki with a bright lift to her voice. "You can do a lot of weird things like make copies of yourself and turn into other people, but giant super toads. I think I'd be too scared to believe it even if I did see it. But anyway, what's next?" Naruto had taken the time to actually think about it while they were watching the movie and came to the conclusion that it didn't really matter what he thought would be fun. From the way she seemed to just enjoy being in the theater, Ibuki would probably like anything that they did, so in the end he had his own thought of what to do. "Why don't you tell me what you want to do? There's got to be a lot of stuff you haven't done yet since you started coming to the city all the time." Her eyes lit up at the suggestion for her to tell him what she wanted to do as it seemed like she had ideas and then some. "Well, I don't know how you'll be able to pull this off, but there is one thing I've really wanted to do for a while. XXX. With Naruto's clone, Ibuki's unnamed ninja village. Ibuki's village training was pretty uniform. A lot of the other students there operated a lot like she did, only she was just better at it from what Naruto's clone managed to glean during the training. Still, training in the dead of night was lame. He wasn't feeling that at all. He didn't learn anything secret really, and it was probably for the best that he didn't in case Ibuki would get in trouble for letting such a thing happen just to go on a date. But Sanju, Ibuki's sensei, kept a keen eye on Naruto clone the entire time, and the clone made sure that its every move was just like he had seen Ibuki do back when they had trained. Apparently he had done a good enough job to keep from being called out because no one said anything. In fact, even Ibuki's friend, a guy wearing a bandana like hers with brown hair under it, and a tight long-sleeved blue shirt with tan-gi pants, treated Naruto clone like he was Ibuki. Pretty awkward, but it seemed to work out. All he had to do was get back to Ibuki's room at that point and everything would be copacetic until the real Ibuki came home to relieve him. As the clone went back inside the house where Ibuki was roomed up, Sanju and another ninja watched the students go inside, waiting for all of the students to leave before Sanju spoke up. "That isn't Ibuki. It's a good impersonation though." The imposter kept complete pace with the training regimen and didn't even really look winded by the end, excelling much the way Ibuki would have. The man next to Sanju nodded stoically. He had short brown hair with spiky bangs that hung over his eyes and wore a sleeveless ninja bodysuit with white borders, a yellow sash, and a mesh shirt underneath with yellow 4 ounces, gloves on his hands. The Nike shoes on his feet offset the entire outfit sharply though. "It's very good. Do you want to deal with our guest or do you want to go track down Ibuki yourself? If you don't have any missions to attend to, I think you should go retrieve her this time, guy," Sanju said as he started to walk inside. "I believe I know who our friend here is. He knows me and he probably won't panic if I'm the one to expose him. I don't believe his intentions are malicious either way." He turned back right before entering the building only to see that the other ninja guy had already vanished and gone off to find Ibuki. XXX. A few hours later, with Naruto and Ibuki, Aohura City. "You're a terrible driver, Naruto," Ibuki teased as she and Naruto sat on the windmill of a miniature golf course. "I thought you knew what you were doing, but you suck at go-karts as much as I do." Naruto shrugged sheepishly and chuckled, remembering just how disastrous the entire let Ibuki drive a go-kart plan had worked out, mostly as far as the point of himself being behind the wheel went. It was still fun though, and at least he didn't get banned for life. "Well, I never drive. I don't even have a license. I just turned 16 like 2 weeks ago." "Well, you should get a license and a car too. Something cool. I want to drive a real car next time." Ibuki scooted closer to Naruto while speaking, just for the sake of getting closer to the guy. With another laugh, Naruto barely noticed her move, his attention placed more on coming up with something else for them to do before it got too late and Ibuki had to go home. Why? So you can crash that too. You'd better get your own license if you want to drive any car I ever get. He then noticed that she had gotten really close to his side, but still scrunched himself closer so that he didn't overstep any bounds. The night had gone good until that point and he didn't want to risk screwing it up by being presumptuous. You know, you can put an arm around me if you want to. You look so nervous right now. It wasn't any use trying to hide what he was trying to do or not to do from Ibuki because his eyes told anyone that was paying close enough attention anything that they wished to know at the moment. And Ibuki could see in his eyes that he wasn't sure how to handle her getting closer. You haven't been on many dates with a girl before, have you? Try none. But the option was taken out of his hands when Ibuki grabbed his right arm and placed it around the back of her waist to keep her close to him. Okay. Don't ever be that guy, Naruto. Ibuki said as she leaned into him, you're overthinking things. Don't do that, just go with the flow, and things are flowing nicely right now. That's what I like about you. I know so many ninja that are uptight and don't just roll with the punches of whatever happens. You're like water sometimes. You go your own way, and if someone tries to change that path or get in the way, it had better be a real force to actually make you do it, or else you'll make them pay for trying. Wow, that was certainly not seen coming by Naruto. So, did you read that somewhere or did you come up with it on your own? He responded in kind with a grin on his face. Oh, so that's how you want to play it, I see. Despite the playing growl in her voice when she made to retort, Ibuki's smile signified that she was still having a good time. You know, I wanted the whole date experience when I got you to go on this whole thing. I more than likely won't be getting the whole walk up to my doorstep for a good night, but I guess that would be too normal for me. But I guess it served its purpose in the end either way. What do you mean? If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm not going to tell you. That would defeat the entire point of even doing this in the first place. Naruto was too old to pout about anything, but it did make Ibuki laugh when she saw him do it. Don't worry about that, worry about me. I'm still your date and I want to do one more thing before I have to go back home. So she had another idea of something she wanted to do. That was just alright with Naruto. Her last idea was a pretty fun one, and he did want to make sure that she had a great time while out with him. Anything you want. What do you want to do? You're making a bad habit out of stretching your time away from the village for your school, Ibuki. Both Naruto and Ibuki looked up to see a man in a red outfit standing atop a windmill blade above them with his arms crossed and an emotionless look on his face. Oh, come on, guy. Ibuki shouted up at the man, I was about to go home. You didn't need to come all the way out here. Her face was red as she thought about what Guy had almost been there to see her do. I was helping a friend. Guy's face didn't change as he continued to look down at the two. You seem to be awfully comfortable for someone that is supposed to be doing something like helping a friend. Well, damn. Apparently Ibuki was busted, but his clone had never dispelled to warn him that they were in trouble. There might be a chance to salvage the situation and run some damage control to keep her from getting into too much trouble. Lying to this guy wasn't going to work. Naruto could just see that this was one of those guys that didn't accept excuses, especially the kind that he was prepared to make about losing track of time. Look, this whole thing is my fault, Naruto said, trying to dump a significant portion of the blame onto himself as he stood up from beside Ibuki. I'm responsible for this. Do you think that our lifestyle is some kind of game? Guy asked Naruto as the young blonde teen had caught his attention. I'm aware of who you are by way of what Sanju has said about you, and I have to ask the question. Just what do you think being a ninja is? You do common household chores, odd jobs, street-level grunt work that would be better served for a gang enforcer. And you call yourself a ninja. It's not just the way that you fight that makes you one. What was with the dull tone when he was eliciting some kind of superiority stroke on him? He rubbed Naruto the wrong way right off the bat, and from the scowl on Ibuki's face she wasn't particularly a huge fan of this person either. Just because I don't do the same kinds of things that you doesn't make me a fake ninja. Naruto remarked with a frown on his face. I don't have a village to give me my missions or to fight for, so I've got to do my own thing. If you don't like me I don't care, but don't insult me. Being a ninja is all I've ever done. What's your problem anyway? I said I was sorry, and she's ready to go home. Guy jumped down from the windmill blade to Naruto and Ibuki's level where he stood slightly over Naruto's head. Ibuki is a model kunoichi, or at least she was until she met you. These mistakes are becoming more and more frequent in a short time. And I'd go as far to say that you could be the problem. Me, Naruto said, pointing to himself as if Guy was possibly talking to anyone else. What the hell did I do? I'm just trying to get along here. Ibuki's focus has been skewed, and her dedication to our lifestyle has been lacking. Guy said as he started to pace around Naruto, and here I find her with you. What do you think that tells me? That real ninja work's been bust down to the glorified stocking of a 15-year-old girl. Ibuki quipped, quite unpleased at how her night was turning out due to the interruption from one of the highest-ranking people that didn't even belong to her village. Why are you even concerned with this? You're not even from my clan in the village. My master is a friend of your own clan's leader and I consider him a friend as well. Guy said, fixing Ibuki with his stern, business-like demeanor. I am your elder in this case, Ibuki. And your current attitude surprises me. You're slipping. I'm stronger now than I ever was. Ibuki assured Guy, I haven't been slacking off at all. As a matter of fact, I've been training right after school most days just like I'd have been if I were at home. I just do it with my other friends. While she would rather do other things than train as long as she was outside of her village, she had to admit that training with the others was more fun, and Naruto's a plenty strong partner to work with. Sanju-sensei should have told you how good he was if you were set on coming out here to mess up our date. I thought you called this you helping a friend out. It was. It is. This was simply flustering the younger female ninja beyond normalcy. It's a date that's helping Naruto out. He saved my life from an entire platoon of Geki clan ninja. I can go out with him if I want to. Looking down, Naruto found that the other denizens of the miniature golf course were staring in interest at the three people standing on the windmill and he decided to interject, can we take this somewhere else? Both Ibuki and Guy then noticed the situation and nodded before they all jumped from the windmill elsewhere. XXX. With Naruto's clone, Ibuki's unnamed ninja village. In order to entertain himself until Ibuki returned and he could dispel, Naruto's Kage Bunshin started looking around her room and wound up in her closet where he saw nothing but different versions of her ninja outfits and her school clothes at first glance. Then after much more searching he found her stash of regular clothes, so this stuff is like contraband or something. He asked the Tanuki Don aloud as if the creature would give him a response, you're such a crappy listener. If I had a pet it would be cooler than you. Knock knock. Yo. I mean, yes. Naruto's clone verbally backtracked hastily before giving a tentative thumbs up to Don, asking if that was going to slide, only getting a derisive snort from the small mammal. He seemed to historically have a lot of problems with Tanukas. At least this one didn't want to kill him. Or did it? Ibuki, it's Sanju. Yes sensei, what can I do for you? You can open the door and let me in for one, or is there a problem? Naruto's clone blanched but couldn't just leave the door closed if Ibuki's sensei wanted to see her. That would be suspicious, too suspicious to risk doing. It was time to see how well he could actually act like Ibuki or he was screwed. He walked over to the door and opened it up to find Sanju standing there. Hello sensei. Do you need something? Nothing important Ibuki. Sanju said as he walked into the room and looked around to find Don looking at him with great interest as to what was about to happen. I just figured that I would come here to tell you. He shut the door and turned to Naruto clone before clearing his throat. I already know that you're not Ibuki, isn't that right Uzumaki Naruto? What? You're crazy. He saw Sanju move to strike him idly and simpered back before dropping the transformation. Alright, I'm not Ibuki, damn it. How much trouble is she in? Sanju adjusted his glasses on his face as he looked the Naruto clone over. He's stuck in a situation where he himself could be punished terribly for his presence in a forbidden village and yet he cares more for Ibuki's fate than his own. Of course Sanju did not know that this Naruto was just a clone. Thus he found Naruto's attitude to be admirable. It all depends on how much she is letting herself neglect her own ninja responsibilities to goof off like a normal schoolchild. Oh. Naruto clone said before relaxing his hands behind his head with a squinty gaze at Sanju. Well if that's all then everything's cool. I train with her all the time after school. She's not getting weak. Trust me. So am I in trouble? I'll take whatever it is, I just want to know. Sanju shook his head and Naruto clone grinned, good. Oh, and I don't know how to get here by the way, I was blindfolded if that matters. Later. Ibuki should be back like 2 hours after I do this. And with that, the clone dispelled in a puff of smoke much to Sanju's surprise. What a strange boy. XXX. With Naruto, Ibuki, and Guy, Aohura City. All three ninja reconvened outside of Naruto's apartment on the dark, quiet street outside when Naruto got the message from his dispelled clone and turned to Ibuki with a smile. Ah, you're not in trouble Ibuki. Sanju figured out my clone wasn't you and busted us. But he says as long as you can prove that you aren't slacking off it'll be fine. Great. Ibuki chirped happily, giving Naruto a big hug at hearing news that good, that'll be super easy. I can wow sensei in the morning with how good I've gotten and then maybe he'll even take the stupid curfew off. Guy idly wondered just how Naruto was able to get that kind of information, but remembered that Naruto had someone in disguise at the ninja village that could probably contact him from that far away. But he had his own things to worry about at the moment. Who said anything about only wowing your sensei? He said, getting Ibuki to stop hugging Naruto to stare at him in confusion. I want to see just how good you've become or just how much you've let yourself slip. The two younger ninja looked at each other and then at Ibuki's attire for the evening before she let out a sigh. Well, I guess I had to change out of these clothes eventually. She said before quicker than Naruto could notice she relieved herself of her evening wear and was instantly back in her normal ninja gear. The entire process took less than a second. I was looking to putting off getting back into this stuff before the date was over. Naruto blinked at the fact that she had completely switched her attire before he could even notice anything. How did you do that and where were you keeping the extra clothes? Completing her transformation from civilian Ibuki to ninja Ibuki, she pulled up the face mask portion of her under-outfit bodysuit at her neck as she winked at Naruto. Oh, that's not very important is it? A ninja has to keep some secrets after all. She then pointed at Guy and put a serious look on her face. If you really want to dance then bring it on. Guy's face didn't change from its normal expressionless appearance as he slid himself into his fighting stance in acceptance of Ibuki's challenge. Wait a minute. Naruto said as Ibuki moved away from him to the center of the street to fight Guy. You're going to do this here? Right in front of my place. He eventually gave up on trying to convince them otherwise and got out of the way, making his way to the top of his apartment complex to watch, kick his ass Ibuki. Ibuki nodded as she got into her own ready stance and waited for the right moment to begin going head to head with Guy. No impatience could be shown in her first approach. This was meant to show that she had grown as a ninja instead of regressing, and she was going to show that venturing outside of the village as much as she did was helping her. Still as a statue, Guy stood. It was clear that his patience was finely honed and he would not be the one that made the first move based solely off of impulse. He could stand there all night if he wished. Ibuki was not going to win a waiting game. And she knew that. Hence why she chose to risk attacking Guy first. Ibuki rushed Guy down in a zigzag pattern on the street only to come in from his right and leap in with a spinning axe kick that he sidestepped as he began to engage Ibuki up close and trade strikes with her. Guy's standing offense consisted of heavy usage of backhand strikes with his lead hand to disorient opponents for a stronger strike from his right hand. But Ibuki was fast, using short punches before springing out of Guy's potential range, forcing him to pursue her a bit. Getting sick of being kept at range by Ibuki, once she sprang back the next time Guy did not allow her the space she needed to dictate the pace of the fight. Hayagaki, fast run. In a show of blinding speed he rushed straight ahead, slipping well within Ibuki's comfortable choice of distance and slid at her legs, delivering a kick that sent her head over heels to the ground. Upon being flipped by the kick and landing on her back, Ibuki immediately rolled to her front and unleashed a barrage of shuriken that missed Guy as he rushed at her again and showed off how he was significantly faster than her, dodging her attacks and rushing right at her again. Ibuki got off of the ground and attempted a spinning backfist to prevent him from attacking her again, but Guy ducked it and delivered a double punch to Ibuki's body that had her stumbling back, holding her stomach. She lashed out with a high kick in response, but Guy blocked the stiff attack with his forearm, shoving her back and pressing forward with his attack again. Instead of engaging in another close-range contest with Guy, Ibuki jumped right over Guy in a corkscrew motion to get behind him. While in the air, she unleashed kunai aimed at Guy's blind spot, but he was able to turn and avoided them. This gave her the opening she needed to safely land and attack him without having to deal with a counter-attack of his, Kazegiri Wind Gilly. She delivered a jumping high kick that Guy blocked, but she used her second leg to turn it into a bicycle kick that caught him under the chin and popped him backwards, knocking him to the ground. Taking advantage, Ibuki rushed him, but Guy rolled through to his feet and jumped into the air to deliver a nasty spinning kick with multiple rotations, Bushin Senpukyaku, Spiritual Warrior Whirlwind Leg. The series of jumping spin kicks hit Ibuki in the face at least 3 times and knocked her back to the ground instead. Do you surrender? Why would I quit? Ibuki responded as she stood back up, slightly shakily, and faced him down again. I'm going to make you eat dirt in just few seconds. You're not getting another chance to attack me again, Guy said before launching at Ibuki to continue his onslaught. Instead of engaging him directly, Ibuki turned tail and beat a hasty retreat, jumping off one of the cars parked on the side of the street and off of the side of a telephone pole only to come to rest on another one. Narrowing his eyes at the girl, Guy swiftly ran right up the pole she had just jumped up, forcing Ibuki to jump from it and unleash a massive amount of weaponry from her arsenal, Kazumi Suzaku Mist Vermilion Sparrow. Guy didn't let a single weapon touch him, but Ibuki did not get disheartened by the failed powerful attack as she landed on the edge of a nearby apartment complex rooftop while Guy charged on the telephone line itself right towards her. She formed an afterimage to confound Guy, but he was not fooled and he made her pay for it. Getting close to her again, Guy delivered 4 punches before backflip kicking her into the air. Crouching on the ground he disappeared in a dust cloud before appearing above Ibuki to finish her off. Nothing personal Ibuki, but this is a lesson for you. Bushin Gorizanpujan, Spiritual Warrior Roaring Thunderstorm God. He reached to grab Ibuki for a piledriver but only found an afterimage in her place. What? You really thought I'd let you hit me 5 times straight and wouldn't have a counter handy? I can see why Naruto always says this, don't underestimate me. Above Guy, Ibuki was even higher in the air than he was, holding multiple kunai in her hands that she let fly at Guy as he turtled up to block them. Not a one even came close to truly harming him outside of light scratches on his arms and legs because that was not the true purpose of the attack. Gotcha. Ibuki used the attack of kunai as a feint to deliver an elbow smash to Guy's jaw that she transitioned into her falling with her knee in Guy's back, forcing him face first into the rooftop. Goodbye Guy. Hashinsho. Whoa. Naruto jumped up from his place where he had been watching the fight, as it had wound up on his own complex's roof, and ran over to where Ibuki had slammed Guy into the surface. What the hell was that? You never used that on me or Sakura-chan. Ibuki sat down and let out a deep breath. Of course I never used that on you. You're my friend. That's a nasty finishing technique, not something you do on people that you particularly like. She then jumped right back to her feet when she saw Guy start to get up. Are you kidding me? You should be out cold. My body is tougher than you think. Guy said with blood trailing from his lip, nose, and a cut on his hairline. I can take more than you expect me to. He saw her prepared to keep fighting and he waved her off. I don't need to see any more Ibuki. You've proven that you are still improving even with the distractions of your normal school. Pulling down her face mask to show a nasty bruise on her cheek and under her jaw, Ibuki gave Guy a relieved smile at finding the fight to be over. I've got some people to help me think outside of the box. Even when I'm not in the village I'm picking up different outlooks on fighting from my friends. Naruto's one of them. Well, for better or worse, whether she liked it or not, being coaxed into training with the never-stop pair of Naruto and Sakura regularly worked for her, and for that she was thankful. Guy took a long hard look at Naruto and got a stare right back from Naruto, a proud smirk on his face as he had just watched his friend vindicate him with her skills. I see. Well, it is time to return to the village Ibuki. He turned his back on both Ibuki and Naruto and crouched down, prepared to leave. I will have to test you one of these days, Uzumaki Naruto. It won't be in a short battle like it was with Ibuki. It will be to a definitive finish. As Guy leapt his way off of the roof and began returning to his home, Naruto ran to the edge of the building and shouted after him, oh, it'll be a short battle alright, because I'll put your ass down in 30 seconds, Datbeo. He then turned back to Ibuki and looked at the cracks in the roof from her last attack on Guy. Man, I'm going to have to fix that for free. Ibuki walked up to Naruto and faced him with a sigh. Well, it was fun while it lasted, Naruto. Thank you for taking me out. even if it didn't end the way I kind of thought that it would. Wait, he knew that the whole running into Guy and fighting him thing was a serious damper, but throughout the entire night Naruto himself was wondering if an Ahura's city rival would run into him and kick something off that way. He had been prepared for the night to end in a manner such as this. Ibuki had to have been as well, as nothing ever really went as planned for people like them. Well, how did you think it would end? Naruto asked her, shoving his hands into his pockets idly. There was something else I really wanted to do that we didn't really get to before Guy stuck his head into this and screwed everything up. She said with a despondent look on her face as she shook her head, oh well. Oh, so he didn't give her the best time he could have in the end. That was kind of deflating. Naruto figured he'd done a great job until the end. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it wasn't anything that you did. Ibuki assured him cheerfully with a few pats on his hand. As a matter of fact, I can still do it right now if I wanted to. It was damn near midnight. What in the world was there to do at this point? Either way, Naruto was pretty much game for whatever she wanted and let her know with a shrug. Well, go ahead then. Tell me what it is. He didn't miss the sly look on the kunoichi's face, but at this point she was too close and too fast for him to keep her from doing what happened next, even if he wanted to. Ibuki slipped forward with her hands behind her back and lightly kissed him, nothing forceful, nothing heavy. Just a regular kiss. His brain more or less stroked off for a moment before registering what was happening. 7 seconds later Ibuki hopped back with a satisfied expression and pulled her face mask back over the lower half of her face before leaving to go home as well. Bye Naruto. See you Monday. Naruto stood there staring at nothing for a few minutes, playing back what had just happened in his head before he threw his hands behind his head and grinned widely, chuckling to himself as he made his way back to his apartment. XXX. The next Monday, Tamagawa Minami High School. You two seriously aren't going to tell us anything about what happened? Kei asked with a twitching eye as she sat in class with Sakura, Naruto and Ibuki, giving the pair of ninja the evil eye for keeping the results of their Saturday night from her. Was it good? Was it bad? What did you guys do? You can't just leave us hanging like that. It was all of our idea for you to even go on the stupid date. As long as it did what it needed to do, I guess it doesn't matter. Sakura said, looking over at a very relaxed Naruto as she had to fight down her own curiosity about what had happened. So what's the verdict, crazy? Are you still all wound up? Nope. Naruto said with complete confidence. He'd been in a great mood for all of Sunday and even got out of bed on Monday without a needed fuss from Sakura. I'm good. Thanks for making me do that. And thanks for going with me Ibuki, I appreciate it. Noticing that Kei was now glaring at Naruto for not having her curiosity sated in the least, Ibuki let out a small laugh before stopping to wink at him. The pleasure was all mine. If you ever get more manic and paranoid than usual again, I'd probably like to do it again. Now by this point, Sakura was in on the fact that there was a significant amount of camaraderie and inside referencing between Naruto and Ibuki and raised an eyebrow. Okay, now I'm asking too. What did you guys do on Saturday? Tell me, Kei more or less demanded. The well-kept gossip in her needed to know. I'm not a ninja and I can't fight, but I will do something if you two don't spill. Sorry. Ibuki said in a non-apologetic manner as Naruto snickered to his heart's content behind Sakura's chair and next to Ibuki's chair with his head on his desk, but every ninja needs their share of secrets. Omake. Mainstream shinobi. Karen's Ahura's city mansion. This better be really good. Naruto said as he and Batsu walked behind Karen and her entourage as they entered her mansion. We were working on a new idea for a jutsu or a ki attack when you called me. In reality, he and Batsu were actually throwing their respective projectile attacks at each other and watching as they blew up. The last one when Karen actually called disrupted their focus due to Naruto's ringtone and blew up in their faces. On the other hand, instead of Naruto who had been there several different times by that point, Batsu was stunned at how large Karen's property was. You live here by yourself. Who the hell needs all of this? Maybe if he could grab one of those nice-looking little statues and get away with it he could get his mom something nice for her birthday. My actual home is larger. Karen commented idly as she led the way into what looked to be a very large entertainment room with a television half the size of the entire far wall sitting against said wall. I do believe that the reason I called you here should satisfy you greatly, Naruto-san. She sounded rather pleased with herself as she said this, "Please have a seat." Neither Naruto nor Batsu needed to be told twice as they both sat down on one of Karen's very comfortable reclining chairs while she herself sat down on a couch, with Ishizaki quickly bringing her a drink on his tray once she was seated. "Why is the super rich girl inviting us to her house to watch TV? I'm not complaining, this is awesome, but what's with this? I invited Naruto-san, you just came along with him, and I would be a bad host to turn away the friend of a friend. You two are friends now?" Batsu asked as he looked between the two blondes sitting in different areas, "So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the apparent outright dislike you two always threw back and forth on the phone and that one time I was there in person was just good old-fashioned teenage sexual tension." Naruto stared at Batsu with an unreadable expression on his face before looking to Karen. "If I tried to beat him up on your property, could you replace the stuff we took out? You would be paying for it." "Thought so. Either way," Karen said as she picked up a remote control and clicked the TV on, "I have something you need to see. Remember how you always seem to be trying to get work done to get money? Well, people only know of your work from word of mouth. That can only go so far, so I figured that a promotional spot would bring your potential clientele up immensely." The two teen males in the room looked at each other. Before Naruto spoke up, "So, you made me a commercial?" Karen nodded and absently took a sip of her prepared drink. "Alright, cool. Let's see it." Without needing to be asked again, Karen queued up the commercial and played it on her massive TV. "Any problem can be solved for the right price," the voiceover said as there was a shot of Naruto walking down the street with Batsu and a group of their other friends. "The focus on him, all you need to do is find the right man for the job." "The right man is a child. I don't like it so far." Naruto grumbled at being called a child. "How do you even get a camera on me without me noticing it anyway? I can get or do anything I want," Karen said as if she had repeated this to him countless times already. "Keep watching." At that point the commercial cut to different shots of Naruto in fights with various people that had been captured from bystanders and placed on the internet at some point in time, ending with him standing over Dan at the end of their fight a few months ago. "If you have a problem, then you can call Uzumaki Naruto, freelance mercenary. Rates negotiable." Nodding at the conclusion of the commercial, Batsu gave his own opinion. "It's kind of cool, but it seems like a lot of sizzle and a little bit of steak, doesn't it? I mean, it tells people that he takes work for money, but it makes him seem like a thug too. It doesn't really tell people what he does." "I thought of that as well." Karen agreed as she hit a few more buttons on her remote to bring something else up. "So I had a second commercial made addressing this point. Here, instead of the action shots, this time it had Naruto doing odd jobs like walking a ton of dogs, moving things into a truck with the use of clones, retiling a roof, washing windows, things like that. Any problem can be solved for the right price. All you need to do is find the right man for the job. The right man is a child. If you have a problem, then you can call Uzumaki Naruto, the ultimate chore boy. Rates negotiable." The commercial ended and left the room in silence until Batsu started laughing uproariously. "Ultimate chore boy. That's great. Put the second one on TV now. At least put it on the internet." He was then muffled by Naruto getting up and stuffing a couch pillow into his face, though it was evident that he was still laughing. Naruto was continuing his efforts to try and smother his friend with a pillow while looking over at his employer, friend who was trying to hide the fact that she was just about to start laughing herself. "Karen, can I have the master tape for the second one? I want to blow it up." He heard Batsu humorously mumble, "Ultimate chore boy," from under the pillow and gave it one good punch. "Shut up." Character profile. Name, guy. Nationality, USA. Gender, male. Age, 20. Height, weight, 5 feet 10 159ths of a pound. Blood type, O. Likes, salmon, rice with green tea, cold tofu, collecting and wearing sneakers. Dislikes, horizontal Western writing, Ibuki's lazy behavior, evil senses. Hobbies, sprinting, making bonsai, jumping from walls. Rivals, Mad Gear Gang, Ibuki. Fighting style, Bushin Ryu Ninpu, spiritual warrior school of ninja arts. Current techniques, Housentu, Bushin Senpukyaku, spiritual warrior whirlwind leg, Bushin Izuna Otoshi, spiritual warrior Izuna drop, Hayagaki, fast run, Kaden Izuna Otoshi, rotating Izuna drop. Hyper techniques, Bushin Hosoken, Bushin Goreizenpujant, spiritual warrior, roaring thunderstorm god, Bushin Muso Renge, spiritual flower god warrior. Background: a delinquent in Japan in his youth, Guy eventually met and was taken in by the 38th Bushin master Zeku, who trained Guy in his specific art of ninjutsu. He moved back to the United States, living in Metro City, a city with a large gang problem, and helped to clean up its streets with the help of a few friends before moving back to Japan to continue his training. Guy rarely smiles and takes most things in life deadly serious, especially his own dedication to the ninja arts. He dislikes anyone that would make light of or disrespect his lifestyle and expects equal dedication from other ninja as well. He is seen as a very prominent figure in Ibuki's village and in multiple groups of ninja around the world. Thank for listening. Do hope you enjoy. If you guys enjoyed, if you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications, and also check out the other videos that have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.